بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Respected brothers and elders, mothers and sisters, dear listeners in Islam, all praise belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who through His infinite grace and mercy and kindness upon us, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the wealth of Iman, with the kalima La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. There was a famous journey of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, which is known as the Isra and the Mi'raj, the night journey of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam from Makkah Mukarramah to Masjid al-Aqsa, and the Mi'raj from Masjid al-Aqsa, where Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam went to the seven heavens in the close proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The ulama have mentioned, whenever difficulty came to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would console Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam with verses from the Quran. Someone harmed Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, someone spat on the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, some people called him with some evil words. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would reveal verses of the Quran to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to console Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This Mi'raj, Isra and Mi'raj that took place was also a great consolement to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the ulama make mention, they say there were four major things that took place, four difficulties that came in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And because of these four difficulties that came in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to console Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, brought Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam to his close proximity and granted him the gift of salah. What were these difficulties that came? And these are mentioned in the books of Tariq, in the books of history with regards to the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. One is the boycott that took place on Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the close family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and the Muslims that accepted Islam on the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. There was a valley that would come into Makkah Mukarramah, and the Quraysh at that time, they decided that they will boycott the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam with the Muslims. Nobody will be able to transact with them, would interact with them, to get married to them, nor they can get married to someone outside. Any person that comes to Makkah Mukarramah will not be able to meet them. They made a boycott, and in this valley no one was allowed to meet them. How long did this boycott take place? For 3 solid years. For 3 solid years. They had a document that was written, it was hung up by the Kaaba, and everyone had to abide by this document that nobody is going to interact with the Muslims and the Banu Hashim. What they wanted from them is, they should present Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam forward, that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam should be killed. They should present Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam forward, and this is the family's united decision that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam should be killed. So nobody is to be blameworthy, their own family is handing him over. And they did not do this, they went through the difficulty for 3 solid years. It was the extreme heat of Arabia, of Makkah Mukarramah. They say at that time, more difficult than their own hunger, more difficult than their own suffering and their own hunger, was for them to see the hunger of their children, because there was no food available. No food available. And Fatima radiallahu ta'ala anha, she was a young girl. She used to hold the dress of her mother, Khadija radiallahu ta'ala anha, and she would say, Ya Ummah al-Atash, Ya Ummah al-Atash. Oh my mother, I'm thirsty. Oh my mother, I'm thirsty. I need something to drink. And in that severity, there was nothing available. There was no water available. There was no food available. When they asked the Sahaba after that, how did you get some food to eat? They say there were some of our slaves that they would go out at night and they would smuggle in some food for us under their armpits. And this is how they would bring sometimes food into the gorge of Ibn Abi Talib. But they suffered in this difficulty for 3 solid years. Difficulty upon difficulty. In this 3 solid years, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam stayed with the Sahaba. And it was overwhelming on Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in these 3 years. Then obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala opened the way. And the ants came, or the insects came, and they ate up the scroll. And the boycott was demolished. But this was 3 years of a difficulty on the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's easy to say the story, but if you actually had to go through a difficulty of 3 years, people went through a difficulty of maybe 2 years of the pandemic, and so many people went through so many difficulties and hardships. Imagine 3 solid years, and by your own people, by the people that you lived by the people that called you a Sadiq and Al-Amin. These same people were harsh against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When this boycott was over, then when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came out, his beloved uncle Abu Talib, who was his uncle, but he cared for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam more so like a real father. He was a fatherly figure in the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was young, he was taken care of by his mother, because his father preceded him and he was born without, his father passed away before he was born. At the age of 6, his mother passed away. At the age of 8, his grandfather passed away. And then he was in the care of his uncle Abu Talib. From that time until Abu Talib was now about to leave this world. And Abu Talib was very close to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ulama have written the amount of assistance he gave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the protection of the deen of Islam is probably more than how much a Muslim can protect Islam today, being a Muslim. He was not a Muslim. He was not a Muslim. But the amount he protected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the amount he assisted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was there on the side of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They say so much so that the Quraysh, they came to Abu Talib and they said, tell this nephew of yours to stop this mission. Tell him to stop the effort of tabligh. Tell him to stop the effort of giving this propagation of deen and inviting people to Islam. So he called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and he discussed the matter with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to his uncle Abu Talib, ما أنا بأقدر من أن أدع ما بعثت به من أن يشعل عهدكم من هذه الشعلة شعلة نار. I do not have the ability to leave this mission for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me, even if I have to hold coals or have to hold a burning flame in my hand. I will rather do that, hold a burning flame in my hand, but I will not leave the mission for which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent me. And Abu Talib, he knew in his heart that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was doing the correct work. He knew in his heart that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He used to even encourage Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He would say to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَاسْدَعْ بِأَمْرِكَ لم تصب صبابة ولقد صدقت وكنت قبل أمينا ولقد علمت أن دين محمدا من خير أديان البرية دينا لولا الملام أو حذار مسبة لوجدتني سمحا بذلك مبينا. He used to say to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَاسْدَعْ بِأَمْرِكَ, continue with this mission of propagation of Islam. Continue with this mission. And he believed that this Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's doing a correct job, he's doing a right effort, and he will support Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, although he was a disbeliever, although he was not a believer, and he was about to leave this world. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to him and he whispered in his ears. He said, oh my uncle Abu Talib, say this kalima once to me. Just say this kalima once to me. Even if you whisper this kalima in my ear, I will be able to bear testimony in front of Allah on the day of Qiyamah. But Abu Talib said to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that I would like to die on the religion of our forefathers. And he left this world in this condition. It hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was painful to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This was the second difficulty. The first difficulty was in the gorge of Ibn Abi Talib. In the gorge for 3 solid years he went through difficulty. And then the second difficulty was to see his own uncle Abu Talib dying in the condition of kufr. supporting him, helping him, assisting him, being on his side, going for the meetings with the Quraysh, trying to protect Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just to know that he passed away in disbelief. It hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The third difficulty that came, the ulama say, is that the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha, few months later, she passed away. This also hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Who was Khadija? She was known as a tahira. Before Islam even came, she was known as a pure, as a chaste woman, one of the wealthiest women of Makkah Mukarramah. She had a beautiful business that she was running, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was assisting her in her business and gave him some responsibility to take care of some of the trade that she used to do. She had animals that she would rent out, what we will say in today's time, similar to a business structure like Hertz or Avis, where they rent out cars, right? Today they rent out cars. People need cars for transportation. So she used to have a lot of camels, and she used to rent out these camels, and she would send Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with the caravan, and people would pay her because they needed to bring in stock. Or you say people rent out trucks, and they rent out the trailers to utilize the stock to come in. A similar business structure like that, which she ran in Makkah Mukarramah to do business. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and assisted her, and the business multiplied and multiplied. Anyways, there was a woman in Makkah Mukarramah by the name of Nafisa, and she asked Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, would you like to get married? And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said yes. And Khadija radiyallahu anha, she asked her, and the union worked out. She was married before, she had children before. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got married to her, and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam really loved her, and he was very close to her, and she was supportive to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That when the revelation came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when nubuwwat and prophethood came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he was in the cave of Hira, on top of Jabal Nur, in the cave when revelation came. When he got the revelation, he was shaking and shivering, and he came down. He came down with the revelation. Who did he go to? Who did he go to say his story? A person goes through trauma. A person goes through difficulty. A person is going through a situation, he does not know what happened. Normally a person might go to his best friend, or he might go to his uncle who was very close to him, or he would have went to Abu Bakr Siddiq who was his best friend. But no, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he went to his wife Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. He could confide in his wife. He knew she was a woman of integrity. He knew she was a woman that will give him good counsel, and she will explain to him the correct method. When he went to his wife, he said, I am now the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has blessed me with revelation. Man ad'u, may yustajib. Who am I going to invite, and who will accept this message? I am now the Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When she heard these words from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, she said the first thing, you be the first one to give the da'wat. You be the first one to give the da'wat. أنت أول من تدعو. You be the first one to give the da'wat. وأنا أول من أستجيب. And I'll be the first one to accept the da'wat. And immediately the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khadija al-Kubra radiyallahu ta'ala anha, she accepted the da'wat of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He lived with her. Allah blessed him with children. He had 6 children from Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha. But when she passed away, it hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It was a loss, a part of his heart that had been taken away. So this was the third difficulty Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through. The first difficulty was the boycott of Ibn Abi Talib, the gods that they were boycotted for 3 years. The second difficulty Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through was that his uncle Abu Talib had passed away. The third difficulty was Khadija radiyallahu ta'ala anha passed away. And the fourth difficulty that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through was he now decided the people of Makkah are not willing to accept, I will go to Taif. And he left from Makkah Mukarramah to Taif to give the da'wat of Islam to the people of Taif. Instead of them being hospitable to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they hurt Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They harmed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He went to the leaders, they did not accept. He went to the common folk, they did not accept. Instead, they led the street urchins behind Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that took stones and they pelted Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That the stones were hitting the bones of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and because of the stones hitting his bones, there was blood that was oozing out of the body of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, dripping down his body, coming into his shoes, clogging his shoes to his feet with blood. and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a person of mercy to mankind, he did not make a bad dua. He did not curse the people of Taif, yet he made a dua for them. And he said, "Oh Allah, it is my own weakness. It is my own weakness that I see this situation in front of me." And yet when the angels came to crush them, he said, "Don't crush them. Don't crush them. Maybe someone from their progeny will accept Iman and Islam." This was the fourth difficulty that went through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ulama say because of these four difficulties, Allah wanted to console Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allah called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam for Mi'raj to the seven heavens, to bring Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the close proximity of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to teach mankind until the day of Qiyamah that salat is not a burden. Salat is not a burden, but salat is the means to remove every burden. Salat is the means to remove every problem. When a person is going through difficulty, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went through four major difficulties in his life. Allah called Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to the seven heavens and blessed Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam with this great gift of salah. This is a gift to this ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A musalli in Islam is not a person who reads one salah. He's not a musalli or two salahs or three salahs or four salahs. A musalli in Islam is a person who reads 5 times a day salat every day. If we ask anyone, "Are you going to come here for Jummah next week?" You say, "Obviously. Obviously I'm going to be here for Jummah next week. Obviously I'll be here for Jummah." Is it an insult that you are saying that I will not be here for Jummah? And then quietly you whisper and you say, "Are you going to be here for Asr Salat today? Are you going to be here for Asr Salat today?" Then the same brother, he says, "Inshallah, make dua." This is the reality. Just like how Jummah Salat is farad, in the same way Asr Salat is also farad, and Maghrib Salat is also farad, and Isha Salat is also farad. All the Salat are farad. A musalli in Islam is a person who reads 5 times a day salat. May Allah give us the tawfiq of understanding.